Hey, everybody. Welcome to our weekly podcast where today I'm joined with Chetan, who I'm really excited to talk a bunch of AI with today. Chetan works with me at SuperDNA. He's been doing a lot of interesting stuff for at least 14 years, and he's going to give a quick intro. Can you just introduce yourself?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mike. Excited to be part of this video recording. Uh, you know, uh, I think this is kind of my first recording ever online, I guess. Been with several other interviews, but this is like going to be a bigger one. So I'm really excited about it. Thanks for the opportunity,
Excellent.
Mike. Yeah,
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you. And, we've been doing a lot of interesting machine learning and kind of AI CGI recently within
yeah,
Wayfair. And that's an effort, led by you. So today we'd
right.
love to, delve into not only how we do and what we do internally at SuperDNA, but a little
Yeah,
broader about, how the industry is evolving. This is a hot topic, really since ChatGPT hit the ground. People have been thinking about how is AI transforming jobs and how is it going to impact the work that I do in a creative space. I see that there's challenges for artists worrying about their work being appropriated or themselves being replaced. I think we both share a different, more optimistic outlook, fortunately, on the topic. But
yeah,
yeah, that's one of the things we'll talk about today. But
sure.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about specifically what are you doing at SuperDNA these days?
Yeah, sure. So I'll quickly give a like rough background about myself, like what I've been doing since 14 years, and then also talk about what I'm doing with SuperDNA now and what I have done before, right? So,
Perfect.
uh, you know, graduated way back in 2010, and then from there on, I was interested in machine learning and computer vision. That was my initial interest, and then slowly, I also was interested in text processing. Understanding text and then playing around with the text. So, coming to the systems, the major systems I built was starting with object tracking systems for defense and document understanding systems for in the text space, basically for reconciliation in the insurance domain, and also built systems related to the recommendation systems, search and retrieval systems in the e-commerce space, mainly on the image side. And I had my own startup where I was generating content automatically, pretty much automatically for in the space of e-commerce, for also for the purpose of search engine optimization. And
It's funny, we take some of this stuff for granted now, Chetan, but, like, you've been doing this for years, right? So a lot of the AI wave, like, you were early to it.
yeah, yeah. So I've seen AI when it was not even born. It was very basic at some point, bunch of rules and very basic algorithms like random forest or something where you need to have labeled data set for each and every problem you have. So there the biggest challenge was creating data sets. If you have a better data set, you have better algorithms. That was the norm. But now everything has changed. Yeah. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that in detail. Now going back to what I've been doing with SuperDNA. So Jatinder, the CEO of SuperDNA, I have been in touch with him from almost 8 plus years. We worked on one of the projects earlier at the earlier stage when SuperDNA was startup. But from then on, I thought it's a very good opportunity considering my interests and also the space which SuperDNA was participating in. So the first production system which I worked with mainly was creating a search engine for 3D assets, mainly for the purpose of reusability at a component level. In the sense, let's say you need to build some, let's say, a furniture like a complicated sofa or something, right?
Mhm.
Now, if a 3D designer has to design it, he will design it from scratch and he might take around 8 hours, sometimes 20 hours. But what if a similar model is already present somewhere else in the internet or maybe within SuperDNA, right? So
Yeah,
you're able
and
to
in this case,
search
we're
it.
talking about a good model, right? One that's already been optimized, it's got nice
Yes,
material, it's got a good layout, it's clean.
right.
This isn't, like, inventing a model from scratch, right? We'll talk about
Yes,
that a little later too, but I think,
yeah.
yeah, that's good to
So
clarify.
yeah, that system is in production and every day people are using it. A lot of 3D artists are using it. Very happy about it, and it's basically empowering artists to be more efficient. So it's helping that. So that's where I started, and later once that is done, Jitendra was talking about how do we solve much more problems in the space of e-commerce and then provide better customer experience, and then our common goal was how do we create better images, right? So that's when we were doing a POC for a bunch of companies. There were a lot of failures, though it seems like everything is available online, but once you jump in and then try to solve one business problem, you will face a lot of challenges. That's what happened to us as well. Now we're at a stage where we are delivering around 1,000 plus 1,000 to 2,000 images for Wayfair, high quality lifestyle images for them, so that their brand level, following their brand guidelines. So so how does that work? Is we're leveraging AI, but we're not entirely dependent on AI as well, because AI can help solve a lot of problems, but at the same time, if
Mhm.
you we specifically think it as a tool to enhance the quality of the work, mainly a quality of art directors, quality of designers, to deliver high quality images.
Nice. And yeah, so I think, leading into kind of maybe the first main question, looking at these images, and we'll incorporate some on screen, but like the quality of the output almost makes you feel like it's magic, right? And
Right,
and
right.
AI has this kind of general aura to it of like a little bit of mystery. It's not as well understood, especially by the masses. So,
Right.
let's do some myth busting here. I think we get a couple questions that are focused on like, demystifying AI. So it's just starting off like, is it magic? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I wish it was magic, like a genie which gives you whatever you want. But that's going to be not true, really. Even at this point, probably next 5 or 10 years, it's not going to be magic. But I'm sure that we're going to solve really tough problems which are even imaginable, solving. But coming back to the question, is Gen AI really magic? No, it's not magic. It's advanced mathematics with a lot of data backed in and a lot of computation power. It relies on a lot of algorithms related to neural networks, and which was trained on lot of data sets. And when I say lot, it's like at the scale of internet, billions of text or images. Yeah. And
Yeah.
why people think it's magic is because they don't really understand the mechanics of it. So democratization of ChatGPT seems like, okay, there is some magic which is going on. Ask whatever you want, it's going to give answers. So it feels like magic, but there are a lot of cases where it fails as well. So
Yeah, I've noticed that, on the tech side of things, like, it can usually be pretty confident in giving you results, whether it's, you're just asking about, facts or history, or you're trying to learn something new, like, if you're doing some software development. The thing that I find striking is that the results seem very confident. Like, you read it and
yes,
it's like, "Oh, that's an authority, telling me this information here."
yes,
And
right.
in reality, and I think this is something maybe the public has seen as they've interacted with these kind of more chat-like tools is, well, maybe it actually doesn't work at all. And the AI side of things, the imagery, where we're seeing, weird stuff, it jumps out a lot more naturally to the human brain, right? I think it's easier to fool us with text than if you see someone with like six fingers, you're like, wait, that's wrong.
Yes.
Or you find the little details. And so sometimes it almost, when you see the failures, makes you think like, does this not even work? So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, Gen actually, I would say that it really works exceptionally well in certain areas, mainly in the area of text generation, image creation, and also assisting people rather than creating everything from scratch. Let's say you're writing a program and you know what exactly you want. The better the detail you know, the better the answer you're gonna get. So if you ask the right detailed question, you're gonna get a really good answer. But again, you should be really careful, because after all, this is all trained on some big data set. What if the question you're asking is not part of that data set, or maybe it's confusing for it? There is always a problem of hallucination, and
Mhm.
generating suboptimal solutions as the domain knowledge increases. For example, let's say there is something recently published. Let's say you're asking some medical question, like let's say this HMPV virus, which is coming out right now. It's just getting out in the market right now. Not market, what I would say is, it's getting
Out in
spread
the world, yeah.
out in the world. Now, in such cases, if you ask a question, obviously it doesn't know, because there is not much information available outside, right? Even ChatGPT 4, they kind of refresh their data probably every month or so. But if you're in that state where it's not yet refreshed, it will just say, I don't know the answer. Ideally, it should say, I don't know the answer, but that's not
Mhm.
always the case. It will say that from whatever it has its own experience, it will say that, oh, it's a new virus. So factually, it may not be always right if you ask very fresh kind of a knowledge, or if it's very domain specific as well. Like if you ask a medical expert some question, right, which is again recent kind of a thing happening, it cannot really
Mhm.
answer that. So bottom line, it does work exceptionally well in most of the cases, but on the edge cases, right, it fails. So you should be
Yeah,
really
and there's
careful.
a cautionary tale too on the medical
Yeah,
side,
yeah,
right? Where, we recently lived through COVID-19 and there was a lot of misinformation in general, this is
yeah.
pre-AI really. And so when you think about that today, and just the way algorithms automatically kind of funnel you to echo chambers of your own opinion, it feels like it's a dangerous combination in some ways, at least on that side. Fortunately, the areas that we're focused on the visualization piece, maybe it's a little less of a, you know,
Yeah,
culture crisis from that regard. But I would be curious, AI is something that, can solve certain areas, right? And I think you you
right.
you touched on that pretty well. But is it something that, like, anyone can use? Like, how accessible are the tools now? Do you need, the background like you have, or is it something people can get started with just on a website?
Yeah. So good thing is anyone can use. That's also true as long as it's democratized. Democratized. Like for example, ChatGPT, anyone can use. All you need is free account, email ID. You can use it. Midjourney,
Mhm.
Dali, and even some services with very minimal pay, right? Like monthly, you can use them. Doesn't mean that you can solve every other problem which you have in businesses, right? Acceptability is growing, but meaningful contributions, not that much, right? Generally, the niche applications, if you want to niche problems to solve certain specific problems, for example, SuperDNA is trying to create lifestyle images, right?
Mhm.
At first point, we felt that, oh, it's already available. Why even go inside it? But once we talked to customers and once we understood that, okay, GenAI can do 100% of what we wanted. It can only do probably 80%. Now, again, once we work with designers, they'll say that, okay, it's not working. What do we do? So once you're trying to solve a specific niche problem, then you'll get to understand that, okay, it's not 100% solved yet. And if you go to a particular problem, you always need a skills of data science, engineering, whatnot, designers. It'll only help right now, at least at this current stage, it'll assist people by a lot. So a software engineer can probably deliver 10x code, less bugs. But without software engineer, if you totally want to rely on Gen AI, it's not going to happen yet. Probably it's
Yeah,
too
it's not a
far.
great way to learn
Yeah,
coding, because it'll often tell you things that just don't compile,
yeah,
right? So it's very similar in the visual space where an artist could use, tools that we're building out that allow them to, get results faster than they would do manually in Photoshop, for example. But they're still the ones that are kind of driving, right? They're layering and setting the inspiration, setting
yeah,
the stage, but they're doing it in a way that, yeah, makes them faster and more efficient, which I think, that's ultimately the goal, at least for myself with AI and enhanced tools, is it doesn't replace our output, it enhances our output so that we're able to focus more on the creative part, the interesting part, and, produce more work that's, more meaningful in a shorter amount of time. So yeah, I think, like, we're making good progress there. One last question on this kind of like myth busting section is, do we need a lot of data for AI, right? Is this something that you need that like internet scale data to produce good results? Or if you're in a
yeah,
niche area, like how much data is enough to actually start seeing the results that you'd want that would be beneficial?
yeah. That's a very good question because at one point I said that you need a lot of data, and then at some point you feel that okay, it's going to answer every question. So that's a very good question, Mike. So what I would say is, so models which are already present, right, have been trained on enormous amount of data, right? And if your particular problem or if your particular question is generic enough, let's say you want to understand how digestive system works of human digestive system works, or if it's a standard question like how do I eat healthy, how do I reduce weight, it's already an established thing, everybody knows about it. Gen AI can answer it even better, probably better than probably like a expert person, right? But again, if you go a little bit deeper and ask very domain specific questions, let's say you want to understand some specific legal document on some specific case that is going on, or you have some medical problem which is kind of unique and you want ChatGPT to answer that, it's not going to be easy for that. Probably it's going to be fail.
Yeah. So don't
Now,
replace your lawyer or your doctor just yet.
yeah,
But if we're using these tools, that can probably help them summarize
yeah,
or find a specific
yeah,
case,
it
right?
can
It's
speed up their process. So that's the
yeah.
reason. That's the reason. Like at SuperDNA, what we did was, though initially we felt that everything is available, it's not. So what we have done is we have boiled down and then used our own data to create certain models which are for certain use cases within SuperDNA. So we have a bunch of like around 10 different models, roughly speaking. Of course, it's growing day by day. Probably today it's 10, tomorrow it's going to be 15, 20. It grows. So what we do there is we take data specific to that particular problem. Let's say that your images are good, but the lighting is not good. It's not following your prompt. Then you need that kind of data
Yeah.
more. to make it better. Let's say outdoors not working, right? Midjourney is not working in outdoors in specific region or specific settings which you wanted to work on. We create that data set ourselves, and then even with minimal data set, it can understand a lot. So that is one of the good things. With minimal kind of a data set, it can generalize better. That is one of the
Okay, what would
advantages.
you, like, ballpark those numbers? Is that, like, 100, 1,000, 10,000? I know we've got, like, probably over 300,000 3D models, right? So we have a pretty
Right.
deep area, but if you're trying to do, like, a specific domain, then obviously you're gonna slice that down a bit. Like, what's a good ballpark number of content? And maybe that could be 2D imagery or 3D models or a combination of the 2.
Yeah. So we use a combination of two. We try to get high quality renders from 3D and then use it and give it as an input to our own models. Generally, that works better.
Mhm.
And coming to the scale part, it depends on the again product. For example, if you take a product like sofa, probably a lot of data is already available on the internet, and probably model already knows a lot about that sofas. But for example, if you take a very specific product like an eyewear or some kind of a 3D what do you call some new product, right? Like let's say
Yeah,
web
okay.
camera. That thing it may not know, then you need to give probably more data. So it all depends on your particular problem. It's not like a standard rule that okay, give 100 samples it can learn. Not like that. Some it's like let's say the problem is simple, then probably few examples are enough, probably hundreds or maybe 10 are also enough. But if the problem is complicated, if there is a lot of variation, if it's not a straightforward answer, then probably you need more and more data. And it's a
Interesting.
continuous process. It's not like okay, you have given data and it's ready. Sometimes you need to update the data and then again kind of fine tune it or retrain it for your particular niche.
Cool. Alright, well, yeah, continuing on, I'm just kinda curious, like, how far do you think this is gonna go? Like, is it gonna get to a point where, we're not necessary, or is it something that, like, where do you think we're at in the journey right now? Are we still at the beginning, or are we getting close to the limits of what AI is gonna meaningfully be able to help us with?
Yeah. I would say we have come really far. So I'm seeing it from almost 14 years using the latest model available and then trying to catch up with research all the time. So what I understand and what I can guess is probably these super personalization systems will get better and better. So AI will be, AI generated content will be tailored more and more to individual preferences in real time. Real time, when I say it could be as simple as what is the weather today? What you have been doing? Let's say you're sick yesterday, right?
Mhm.
So based on that and today's weather and then current weather, current temperature, it can suggest you something nice, right? Maybe it's in the marketing space or it's in the entertainment space. Let's say yesterday was Sunday and today's your birthday, right? It can understand that and tell you that okay, why don't you relax today and have watch this movie because from your previous selections, this movie could be better for you. That's what I call a super socialization, super personalization that can happen. And
Mhm.
again, AI assisting humans right now, the code assistance is like Microsoft GitHub Copilot and everything. It's working pretty good. Now, probably you will see more and more assistants coming in, probably in medical areas and probably in legal domains. Also, you'll see a lot of assistants which will help you take better decisions.
Yeah.
So, as a human, we will have more value if we are better than that. So we better be expert in one of the areas rather than master of jack of all trades. Better be master of at least few of or one of the areas. That will be better for us as a career. And
Yeah.
and one more thing is so for with less and less instructions, AI can generate lot things which we want. So for now, let's say you want something to be done, you might want to chat a lot. Let's say you're chatting it for 5-10 minutes. Probably in future you'll be chatting for only 1 minute or so. So exactly like just tell the command, you'll get it. Ideally, that should happen, but it'll take time. It's slow progress, which will go right. And one more thing is the context. So the biggest problem with the current even ChatGPT 4 text models is it'll not understand the context really well if it's really long. For example, you have a something which is talking about some person on the first paragraph, and then something you're talking the same thing at the last paragraph. Let's say the 20th paragraph, right?
It can, like, forget who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
you can understand that and then probably connect that point and this point and then come up with a new insight based on that. But for ChatGPT or any kind of a recent model, it's very hard on the text side. So that
Cool.
will probably also improve. Instead of first and second paragraph we can solve now, but it will go to first and 10th paragraph. But first and 100 is really far.
Yeah, so maybe in a similar sense, like the way we're generating imagery now, maybe videos around the corner, or I know you've done some experimentation with video, and then maybe, the temporal nature of video could maybe make it, better perhaps over time if we know we've
Right.
starting with like really good scene and good images, but it could also potentially introduce more
Yeah.
artifacts. So seems like that's an evolving space. How is it for marketing agencies now today that they could leverage, tools like the ones that we're building out to create like fresher, newer, more personalized content?
Yeah. So for marketing agencies, it's really useful in the sense it enables hyper targeted campaigns. And then let's say, you want to write an email to a potential customer, right? It will know a lot about customer, the current things which he's doing. So there are already a lot of applications building on top of this. Let's say it can track the Twitter, and then it can track your Facebook and what you're doing in Instagram based on that. And also, let's say you're in London today, and then based on that, hope you're having a good travel in London, and then you have something in this message. And while you're writing email, this will go in. So it's kind of creepy at the same time, right? But maybe it should not be that personal level. So A doesn't know what is creepy and what is not creepy. So let's say it create an email for you, you back check if it's really good, and then you can basically, what I'm saying is, you can create really hyper personalized emails and then campaigns for getting better ROI, right? And then another thing is, if you see 10 years back, every word you see on the internet is human written, but now
Yeah,
more
I
than
wonder what that
50%, more than 50% is, I think, AI assisted. Everybody has access to some kind of a LLM, and then they're able to write content. So even
mhm.
small agencies can write really high quality content that can rank. So it's going to be really difficult for search engines to really rank what is good, what is bad. So search engines, I think, going to have a really hard time understanding what is a better one, and probably it will go back to the authority of the page, authenticity of the page. So if Mike is writing an article versus a college student is writing an article on the same topic but at the same quality, probably it will going to rank yours better because you have the authenticity, right? So
Right.
again,
For
what
now, hopefully, until the AI starts training on its own data more and more. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. For wrapping up like our conversation, I do want to kind of get back to some of the stuff we're doing specifically at SuperDNA and kind of talk about the outlook for 2025. We've already made a few really great breakthroughs internally for, reusability search that you touched on. We're seeing this AI CGI, imagery for customers. How do you see that evolving in 2025? And, what are you working on now that you're excited about?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with the lifestyle images. One of the challenges we see on generating lifestyle images is, what we think is generating images would become easier and easier as we go by from the tools we have built. But the most challenging part would be doing QA on top of them. How do you know if the image is really good? So as a customer, let's say
Yeah.
Wayfair, we as a team of 50 people will be delivering 2000 or 4000 images for you. Now, would you be having such a team to see if the images are really good? So you, even if we say the image is good, how do you validate if the image is really good, right? So for that, it's very hard problem. So for that, what we're trying to do is use AI to build our own QA tool. So what that tool does is, let's say you have a hero product as a chair, and it's supposed to be 160 centimeters. Now, is it really 160 centimeters given the entire image according to the context? So the AI will again do it for you and then say that, okay, in this image, it is looking as if it's 170 centimeters, but it's not 160 centimeters, right? So it will say that, okay, it will alarm the user, or maybe Wayfair says that, okay, maybe you should recheck this images because they have some issue. Similarly, we want to have a lot of scores to say if they're really following Wayfair's brand guidelines, right? We are tracking that. So brand guidelines in the sense, let's say you wanted white walls, and then we wanted white in this particular shade, not like a blue white, but probably light grayish kind of a white. How do you know that? Can you do it at a scale? So for those, we
Yeah.
need specific algorithms, computer vision based algorithms, not necessarily AI all the time. Sometimes we need to build our own systems as well because not all problems are solved anyways. We know that. And
Mhm.
the same QA tool can also be used as an enterprise catalog analysis tool. Now, Wayfair has a particular problem like, okay, we have 1 million images which are being seen every day by millions of users. Now, can you tell me how many of these images follow brand guidelines and how many of these images don't follow brand guidelines, right? So you need to solve the problems at scale. So we are also building tools to help that. So eventually, when we go to different customer, not just Wayfair, right, we should be able to tell, okay, these are your brand guidelines. these are the images which are not following, so we can improve those for you. So
It
do
does feel
something.
really helpful from that kind of like, hey, you've got an existing catalog of millions of products or images, and if that content's being submitted by, brands and suppliers, some are gonna have higher, quality standards than others, and being able to kinda quickly filter and highlight the images that are maybe underperforming or that could be improved,
Correct.
as kind of a pre-scan. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of highlight where effort should be focused and investment could be made to make better outcomes. And then you feed that into the AI system, and then it produces output, and then you're scoring that output, and presumably you can measure, how much better the images and eventually
Right.
tie that back to user behavior, right? So you can see
Yes.
like a lift from this older content all of a sudden the next month, like the products like, clicks are going up or, the rankings changing. So yeah, I think, being able to assess that both before and
Yeah.
after is really powerful.
Yeah, so that's one of the important things which we're going to improve upon. And at a global level, what we're trying to do is we're going to build systems that transform the space of marketing and advertising with digital content. Digital content generated leveraging GenAI and 3D specifically, right? Now, how is this going to impact customers? Is we believe that it's going to impact or increase the customer experience at least by 5x or maybe 10x, depending on the situation and the complications, right? And we're going to solve this by generating two kind of content, static and then dynamic. Static, I already discussed, it's mostly lifestyle images tailored to brand guidelines. And when I say brand guidelines, it's very important to stick to that because Wayfair has its own brand guidelines. Similarly, other clients will have their own brand guidelines. It's very important to stick to that. Now, if you
Yeah,
use
even
any
within
generic
a
AI,
category, you often
yeah,
find that there's a brand
yeah,
or there's a focus or there's an intent that, the
right,
imagery is gonna convey, and being able to kind of, ensure that all your content is fitting within that, focus
right,
area is gonna make for a more unified customer experience.
correct.
Yeah.
And when I say brand guidelines, it seems very simple as if a bunch of rules. It's not that simple. Let me put a little bit light on that. Sometimes brand guidelines are specific at a category level. For indoor accent chairs, I want these guidelines. For outdoor dining chairs, I want these kind of guidelines, right? For decorative items, I want different kind of a guidelines. So even though it's one client, we might have around all put together 1,000 different guidelines, but among them it depends on category again. So it's not that easy. It has their own complications inside. Now that is on the
Mhm.
static side. On the dynamic side, we're still exploring and we are close to creating videos from 3D and a combination of lifestyle images, right? So we believe that the more interactive the content is, the better the presentation and showing the details or the features or functional aspects of any kind of product. It's more visible in either 3D or videos. Now we
Mhm.
feel that if you use 3D and videos together, right, we can help increase the customer experience by like a lot. So that is
Yeah,
one
it
of
makes
the
sense,
other.
and I think we're
Yeah,
at a stage right now where the AI content to generate, let's say lifestyle imagery is getting pretty good. It's a nice like introductory, point for a company to work with us to help enhance their catalog. And
correct,
then over time, if they've got certain products or categories that could use even more of that, kind of interactivity or 3D content where you can start engaging in the product, seeing it from all angles. That's,
right.
still today anyway, a separate process, right? Behind the scenes, we might leverage AI to create the content faster, but AI is not generating that 3D content. That's still something
Not
that
yet.
we're,
Yeah, yeah. That's one of
handcrafting.
the, yeah. That's also one of the areas where you can't. If you feel that Gen A is not magic, it can't do anything. Everything. Gen A is not really good at creating 3D assets. I think you already know about it. Uh,
Mhm.
maybe you can throw some light on it. Like, what do you think?
Yeah,
Do you think Gen
it's
A creates better 3D assets? Probably better than human. What do you think about that?
no, yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting topic because we've been seeing that, especially since I was at Wayfair back in 2015 to 18 was when I ran Wayfair Next, and at that time, some of these generative tools were emerging, and we even had like a team internally that was working on this, and it was coming from research, and we are feeding it pretty large data sets. So I'll take like a chair for example, right? We were able to like focus on that category of chairs and get to a point where we could generate something that you'd recognize as a chair. However, did it look like the product? Like, no. And so that was like the challenge that we ran into is like, yeah, we can get something that has four legs and a back and it kind of resembles, a chair. but, like, the prompts can only take you so far, and even reference imagery might get you, like, one angle that looks good, but if you don't have enough, like, of the sides or the back or the bottom, and the AI is, like, hallucinating detail, then you're actually doing yourself a disservice because the customer is looking at that 3D content, and they're expecting it to be a, a digital twin of the thing that they're gonna get, and if it's not, and AI is, invented some details that aren't there, that could lead to, more problems. And so ultimately what we found is that there's no magic bullet. There's a lot of, startups or pitch decks or videos you might see that look like AI is amazing. And it may have done one particular use case really well. And that's usually your, website landing page or your, hero assets in, your paper. But then when you dive a little deeper and you try to use your own personal data, it turns out that, well, there's so many different edge cases. If you don't have it dialed in exactly for that specific thing that they're showing you is magic, it's not. It like falls apart. So that's been my experience with it.
I agree with
I
you.
obviously
I can
keep
see
an eye
that.
on it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always evolving, but
yeah.
I think that it's a difficult problem to come up with, and eventually maybe it'll be an enhanced tool, but I don't think it'll ever be like a replacement for someone kind of validating it or a scanning machine, right? If you've got a combination of hardware that can scan it and then maybe optimize it, I could see that
Right.
being an automated process. But for just, give me one photo and I'm going to make a perfect replica, I just don't believe it because you don't have all the
I
information from one photo.
understand. Good one. I like it. Even I agree with you because like yeah, I think you and I are also working in a similar area. One of the things which you're going to do in 2025 is research that topic. Can we generate? How far can we generate 3D asset? Or how can we rather let me put it in different words? How can we empower a 3D artist to make a high quality 3D asset to him? Like, let's say, for example, he can build a 3D asset within 8 hours. Can we use GenAI and then ask him to make the same 3D kind of a model with high quality within 2 hours or 3 hours? I think that would be a good value addition.
Awesome. Yeah, this was great. I really appreciate the conversation today, Chetan. We're coming up on time, but if you guys have more questions, you want to learn more about a particular area, hit us up in the chat, the comments, or reach out directly. We're excited to continue this conversation, especially since this is a fresh new topic, and there's a lot of development coming in 2025 and beyond. So, thanks all. See you next time.
Thank you.